some of it. This video is about, well, my situation, obviously. A lot of y'all, even people who claim to be my friend, for years and years and years claiming to be my friend, want to make it all about Natalie. No. Natalie is not the only person who existed through this. See, you're using Natalie Bollinger's killer getting found as an excuse to look away from all of the people who are harming me over the situation because you assume that's because you're an idiot. Here's how Scott Decostes is getting away with his crimes, and also why many of my other predators are getting away with their crimes. Scott Decostes put me on a tour of facilities in Nebraska where he could tell them one thing and have them just believe it. When I said Scott Decostes had me arrested and locked up by lying, I meant it. But because this is the criminal justice system and all these blue line of bullshitters are all on the same side, and you can't say that because in the state of Nebraska, if you don't feel that you can get a fair trial, then they can use that to claim that you're not competent to stand trial. Well, I had proof that I couldn't get a fair trial in Dual County all the way back in 2018, and a whole bunch since. I also had evidence of why, and so did they, going all the way back to 2017, at the very beginning of 2017, matter of fact. Nebraska State Patrol and Dual County Sheriff's Department were both involved in that situation in 2017 in January. You think they're going to give up the names of the officers who fucked up? Neither agency. Miranda Neutse, she's the lady who helps people like Sarah Nelson get away with the crime she committed. She's the one who helps people like Michelle Decini get away with the crimes that she committed. And you guys pretend that they're all sugar and spice and everything nice. Sarah Nelson was the assistant warden. I met her the day before I left. By the way, she's a pretty blonde-haired lady. Here's how the courts get away with committing the felonies that they committed. This includes at least 3 judges. Oh, yeah. Alright, so first of all, Scott Decostes assaulted me after trying to get Nebraska State Patrol to do their jobs to investigate him, to look at the evidence. For years and years, they lied to me about what the law says, and no matter what, always some excuse why they can't do their jobs. Repeatedly telling me that I have to go to Scott Decostes to turn in the crimes committed against me in Dual County, because he's the only law enforcement. No, there's Nebraska State Patrol, and then when there is a conflict of interest between Dual County Sheriff's Department or any other department in Nebraska, it is to be taken to and gone through Nebraska State Patrol, who is to investigate it, especially in the case of an at-risk and abused adult who is vulnerable to this type of abuse, especially when it is an at-risk adult who is at the top tier of every risk factor for this happening to them. Miranda Neutse, when I tried to turn in the people who were abusing me in the prison, Mind you, they thought they were going to get away with it by calling me schizophrenic. Meanwhile, their own doctors said I wasn't schizophrenic. And on my very YouTube channel here, we also have Marcia Estrada admitting that I'm not schizophrenic or delusional. That means that the things that I say either did or did not happen. And that it was wrong for anyone to assume my guilt without first attempting to look at the evidence. And we've got recordings with Tara Smith on my channel, where she admits that she was called out there. She admits to remembering that I met her at Pump and Pantry. She also said it'll take an act of God to get that information from her department. Well, with all due respect, that's a lie. Anytime a public pretender or government official tells you it will take an act of God, they are lying to you. They are lazy. They don't want to do their jobs. They don't give two shits about you. They're there for a paycheck. And if you don't record it, they get away. Scott Decostes got away with his crimes by repeatedly calling me mentally ill and allowing my other predators within his department to go free, to travel on to elsewhere, up to and including out of state where they could not be pursued, and up to including assisting several of those people in gaining higher positions within the community. He insinuated to me that Jared Hahn had moved. He got another job, a better job, and he moved. He didn't. He's a city council member in Chapel, Nebraska. My God, people. This is how corruption works. You set up your buddies in positions to protect you. Nebraska State Patrol is supposed to do something like immediately, like they did with Michelle Quinn immediately, like they did with Polly Olson. Now, who told on Polly Olson for helping to embezzle them funds? Her daughter might have also been involved. All of the things that I should have had access to and would have had access to if I had not been falsely charged for trying to turn in my predators. And I let them know I was turning them in to law enforcement and to the courts. I didn't threaten to chop their dogs' heads off and feed it to them for breakfast. I didn't go chasing these people down the street with a fucking axe. It comes down to accountability. I'm easy to blame. None of these people want to take any accountability for the crimes that they committed to help their buddies get away. Siggy actually listened to the mandated reporter training video. He actually did that. None of these people did their jobs. None of them. They all took advantage of me. And took advantage of you by taking taxpayer dollars for not doing their jobs. And it is their jobs. You get to hear them make every excuse why it's not their job. From police officers to hospital workers, across the board. None of them willing to do their job for a homeless person. Especially a male. Especially if he's trying to turn in mandated reporters. My God, folks, this is their jobs. Knowing that I am recording it, they put on almost enough of a show to pretend like they were going to help. But in the end, no, they're not. I'm stuck out here. Stuck out here. You say, why don't you move somewhere else? How many times do I have to move? To have no friends. To establish myself absolutely nowhere. To be forced to move somewhere else. And meanwhile, the mandated reporters who are supposed to help me with the paperwork, help me to get to my appointments, help me to turn these things in and be there in person. They're not doing it because none of you care. There's no civilian oversight for any of these people. They are not accountable to you. They are not held accountable to you because you don't care. Nebraska State Patrol repeatedly telling me it's not Nebraska State Patrol's job to police the police. And then look at Michelle Quinn. Now, Michelle Quinn herself did have direct involvement, despite the fact that I did not see her. She was the sheriff of Garden County. One of the out of jurisdictions it's got to utilize to harm me and to steal my evidence. By law, it was supposed to go to Nebraska State Patrol. By law, it was supposed to go to North Platte for processing. They did not follow the law because they wanted that evidence for themselves. They wanted access to that. They wanted to be able to steal what was on it, and they did. I'm surprised they didn't wipe the whole goddamn thing. They went through and specifically looked for stuff with their names on it and stuff with dates where they'd committed felonies and were recorded. Nebraska State Patrol assisted them in doing this, knowing that I was trying to turn in Scott Decostes. Nebraska State Patrol officers went out of their way to lie and mislead the situation, and the stuff that's on my YouTube channel, you know what? It's still up. Many of the crimes that they committed are still up. And then there's the things that they tried to say to pretend like they were nice people who just wanted to help. Oh, you can do that to stupid people. There's a lot of stupid people. Here's the thing, if you don't go along with it, there's another option. They can beat you, they can arrest you, false charges. They can lock you up and send you to somewhere else like Scotts Bluff. Or even prison in Lincoln on false charges. Now, Scott Decostes gets to play like none of this is his fault. It was his deputies who didn't do their jobs. His deputies who didn't do their jobs. And they can't be pursued because they're out of jurisdiction. You seeing this, folks? You seeing how this works? But he can utilize any jurisdiction around, including the jurisdictions that I was told when I went to them. Wrong jurisdiction, bud. Like the stuff that happened in Cheyenne County with Cheyenne County deputies and Dual County deputies. And the hospital there in Sydney. I'm supposed to turn that into Dual County? Wrong jurisdiction, dummy. Or Scott Decostes going out of his way to say, oh, well, we'll turn in the Sandy Fromm stuff in Cheyenne County, and we'll turn in the Chris Kurth stuff here. Are you sure? Because then he wouldn't let me do those things. First of all, and second of all, by that point, he'd already been a fucking excuse and a stick in the mud who had been obstructing justice and obstructing government operations literally for years by that point. Hayden Thomas was supposed to be my disabilities coordinator. I didn't see him until I had been there for months. Then, of course, one of my predators got to sit in a room with me and my coordinator, and we made one call. That's the one call that I got to make while I was in prison to Megan Missigatis, to try to coordinate because they wouldn't allow her on my phone list. They wouldn't allow it because she wouldn't give an address and a phone number. See, she's supposed to advocate for me, but would not advocate. She made it impossible to get a hold of her legally for any purpose whatsoever as far as they were concerned in prison. Scott Decostes broke the law to prevent me from turning him in, knowing full well that I had an appointment with Nebraska State Patrol, although Nebraska State Patrol did not follow through on their end of the bargain. And the issues with, of course, Robert Franklin Warnick assaulting me. This is after I tried to turn him in for threatening my life. After I tried to turn him in for threatening to assault me, for trying to bully me into being friends with him on Facebook. Coming out into the middle of the street to do this. Meanwhile, if I got a tool that I'm using, they're going to arrest me for owning a tool? How many of you people work for a living? How many of y'all have a hammer in your car or in your truck? How about a sledgehammer? How about a pry bar? How about a skill saw? A lot of y'all got tools. You need tools. They're your work tools. Something breaks down, you need tools. Now, if you're needing to cut stuff up over at Dallas's house with an axe, and you're needing to cut stuff over at Stegeman's with an axe, you have an axe. That's not a crime. That doesn't make it okay to lock you up in prison as if you're chasing people down the fucking street, screaming at them that you're going to kill them and their kids. It's not the same thing. Scott Decostes helped all of my predators to get away with it because he knew that I was trying to turn him in. Now you get to see Polly Olson, one of the people involved. She's going to prison because she didn't have any problems with abusing your tax dollars. Just like she didn't have any problem with abusing your tax dollars to make sure that her friends in Dual County Sheriff's Department got away. Well, they didn't protect her. She didn't get the mentally ill treatment either. There's a lot of witnesses that want to say, oh, I don't have anything to do with the courts, or I'm not a lawyer. It doesn't matter. You're a witness. What, you think you can only be a witness if you're a lawyer? Are you listening to yourselves? Any excuse that you can make, no matter how irrational or dumb, is magically okay. Hayden Thomas, I saw him one day. One day. And then he quit his job. He's even in the news for quitting his job. His name is in my paperwork from the prisons. So, although they legally have to allow me one of those, they get to pretend that they did because Hayden Thomas quit his job. He was having to work at multiple facilities. He quit his job over what he felt were moral reasons. So then they get to pretend that I had a disabilities coordinator. Oh, well, he had a disabilities coordinator. See, it says Hayden Thomas right there, disabilities coordinator. So we did our jobs legally. So that leaves it on Hayden Thomas. It's Hayden Thomas. It's Hayden Thomas's fault, apparently. But then, let's take a look at Megan Mistigatus. And don't get me wrong, she did a shitty job. She did not advocate, which forced me to do things that are against the law in order to save lives, which makes them not against the law, just so you know. Because she wouldn't do her job. Her job as an advocate is to actually advocate for somebody. If you can't do that, it is your job to inform all parties involved that you are not capable of doing that. Not 6 months down the road. Scott Decostes treating me like I'm a fucking idiot for telling him what Megan Mistigatus is telling me. Megan Mistigatus is treating me like I'm a fucking idiot for telling her what Scott Decostes is telling me. I got both of them recorded telling me that shit. I got me explaining to Decostes, and Decostes, no matter what, keeps telling me that's what Megan is supposed to help me with. Now, when you look up why, it's because an advocate in the state of Nebraska has a very specific job and duty. And Megan Mistigatus was making zero efforts to perform those duties. So she should not use the title of advocate. So although I'm supposed to have an advocate, they get to pretend that I had an advocate because she uses the title of advocate. So again, it's not Scott Decostes' fault that she didn't do her job. And with her not allowed to speak and her not allowed to advocate, her being prevented from doing so and being told it's inappropriate, meanwhile, I had to prompt her to do that. I had to explain to her that there are actually legal duties involved in this because I am an at-risk adult and because she picked up the responsibility and instead of finding out what was going on, wanted to constantly tell me about her problems. She wanted to tell me about her weight. She wanted to tell me about her husband. She wanted to tell me about all sorts of things other than focus on the task at hand. Why are we going off on 400 tangents about your life if you're supposed to be advocating for me? Then, of course, she didn't want that stuff released. She doesn't want everybody to know everything about her personal life. So I agreed. If she's going to do her job, absolutely, I can try to keep that stuff private, not secret. I'm not keeping it secret. I can keep it private, though. But that's the thing, is that all of these mandated reporters with any excuse to push it on, to drag it out. Oh, well, we can do this after we get you housing. Well, I need emergency housing, first of all. Second of all, the least that you can do is provide me with a room where I can sit down with my evidence and do what you're asking me to do, because I can't do that from my vehicle. And I'm in my vehicle because of predation by these people I'm trying to turn in. So mind you, you need to stop being a dick, right? Now, how many of these facilities and or individuals that Scott Decostes lied to, manipulated, and got to commit crimes, how many of them have been arrested? Sarah Nelson has been arrested. Sexual assault against an inmate, and that's not all. Michelle Decini, sexual assault against an inmate, and that's not all. Michelle Quinn, beating the hell out of her girlfriend, and that's not all. All of these. And Polly Olson. According to Nebraska state law, Nebraska State Patrol's job is to police the police. It is to investigate the public officials. And they do have to follow the rules and laws and guidelines. And the fact that they repeatedly sent me to Scott Decostes, knowing it was felonious for them to send me to Scott Decostes, makes Nebraska State Patrol criminally negligent. The fact that the crimes that Scott Decostes and his deputies had committed prior to, at, and after my grandmother's funeral, you know, these are all things, of course, with Hayden Thomas. It's his fault. It's his fault. If it gets that far, that's an excuse that DeCosta can use. Just like with Megan Missigates. Oh, well, she was supposed to be an advocate. Someone typed, called JB 1987 Osorio typed, "Can you sue?" Not without help. They call me mentally ill. They automatically win. That's the way it works in the United States. Unless you got family that cares. If you have family that cares, it's not mentally ill anymore. It's mentally disabled and they're abusing an at-risk adult. But when they say mentally ill, this is a dark person. This is an evil person. This is a person who thinks that they're Satan and they must go out and rip the spawns of the Almighty out of the unborn wombs of women. Just creeper-ass shit. Jack the Ripper and Jeffrey Dahmer, and these are the mentally ill. The ones who walk into schools and shoot a whole bunch of fucking kids. The ones who walk into Google and blow away all their coworkers. The ones who walk into Walmart and blow away their coworkers and blow their own heads off. Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris and their propane bottles. This is what comes to mind when they say mentally ill. It's kind of like pain compliance. Everywhere else in the world, they call that torture. That is literally what it is. By definition, same exact thing. But if you call it pain compliance, then it's legal. It's okay to do it to somebody, especially if you antagonize the victim until they are so scared that they can barely function and barely speak. And then you treat them like they're being irrational. You abuse the shit out of us. We have no protections without family or friends. Now, the incompetence and negligence here is just like it is anywhere else. They will accidentally fuck up a lot, and although their fuck-ups have a great effect on the situation, they don't think that they should be held accountable for their fuck-ups, but repeated fuck-ups like this really screw all of us over. See, here's the paper that, and of course, Siggy got to watch this. Here's the paperwork from the hospital here in Tillamook, trying to turn in abuse that I am still taking over these things. They gave me the elder abuse paperwork. It says, how can elder abuse be prevented? And the very, very top, because you're supposed to legally have a guardian who is a family or friend. And if you do not have a family member or a friend to be your guardian, you are supposed to be appointed a state-appointed guardian. Which should have, well, that should have happened the moment that I got my diagnosis. The moment that they sent me the disability money, for sure. There should have been a case manager that I could go to about these abuses who would take it seriously. I mean, we're not just talking about defrauding the American public here. Scott Decostes wasn't the only one. Polly Olson helped. Jared Hahn helped. My friends and family didn't care. I gave them all my money because they wouldn't come forward and tell the truth. They couldn't because of this, that, and the other. They defrauded me by telling me that they would help me with these things if I did this, that, and the other. Knowing that it was eating up my time, knowing that they never had any intention of doing so. It says, if you are a family member or friend, because when you're a disabled adult, This is the same on both of them, by the way, not just the elder abuse one, which by giving me this instead of the disabled adult one, that shows negligence. Now, if they're friends with any of those officers, that shows intentional negligence. The fact that hospital workers are more likely to listen to a police officer than a patient is also something that shows bias. When it comes to the mandated reporter training video, perhaps you should listen to it and understand why what they did was entirely wrong. What you hear is, oh, they're sweet and innocent. They talk nice to him. They apparently did what they were supposed to according to them. No, 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 no. The people they tried sending me to, if you listen to the video, it's literally the places that I was trying to turn in. They wanted to send me to Tides of Change. They wanted to send me to Care, Helping Hands. Places I was trying to turn in. It says, if you are feeling suicidal, have a plan. Please seek care at our local ER. Well, I've always got a plan. Plan for every December 29th. Maybe someday I'll make it. The reason that I am against actual suicide is because somebody's going to find it, and that's gross. If you've never found a body of a loved one, you lucky son of a... But don't tell me how to think and how to feel and how to react. Abuse and neglect. They're telling me to go to the places that have already neglected their duty. Why am I being sent to these places if these places are already recorded? People at all of these places recorded saying that's not what they do. When these are literally the things and places I'm going to turn in for neglect against an at-risk adult, they're telling me to go to these places to turn themselves in. They didn't take it seriously because I went in alone. Over and over again. And the one time somebody went in with me, he did not go in there and act as if he was professional support or even a concerned friend or family member. It was more of a, all right, he's here for services and I'm here for services too. So we're kind of hanging out together sort of thing. And it's something that it don't work out. Now, Scott Decostes running around telling everybody in Chapel, Nebraska that I'm schizophrenic. Telling the hospitals I'm schizophrenic. Telling the prisons and the jails that I'm schizophrenic. Having me treated like I'm schizophrenic. And ignored as if I'm schizophrenic. Meanwhile, even in the prisons, those doctors realized I wasn't schizophrenic. And they were pissed. And then there's Marcia Estrada. Yeah, you get to hear the video with her. Not schizophrenic. Not delusional. Not psychotic. Don't have bipolar disorder. Her explanations are exactly the ones that I gave you from the beginning. I gave you clinical explanations from the beginning, and that was too much. So I tried to explain it by dumbing it down for a bunch of fucking idiots. You still didn't get it. You also still weren't listening. So I had to take a step back and tell myself, all right, I'm nice and funny and kind, and people are always telling me this. I'm nice and funny and kind. I'm nice and funny and kind. And they give me empty promises because they like me, because I'm nice and funny and kind, but they never follow through. Why don't they? Who do they follow through with? Okay, that dude tells her she's a stupid fucking whore and a dumb cunt, and he wishes that he had a daughter that wasn't retarded. And that guy over there, he screams at his girlfriend and berates her publicly. And of course, she's Christian, and he screams. He has to do it. She has to do what he tells him to. And then, of course, in all of these situations, we're talking about people controlling another person, going out of their way to try to control another person by being mean and cruel and evil. And then I've got all of these people in my life who have these controlling assholes in their life, treating them like hell. And they can't listen to me because their lives are hell. They can't listen to me because the guy that they're dating, yeah, you threw me away for that dick. You remember that? We were friends. We used to hang out all the time. You were going to help me. I was going to help you. Then you found a penis. 6 years down the road, you're like, fuck, dude, I got 2 kids with a guy that I can't fucking stand. I'm like, I know exactly which guy it is. You remember inviting me to the baby shower? Yeah. I remember what you said you were going to do. I also remember you fell on top of a penis and forgot all about that. I also remember me and Ogre and Sage busting our asses for months to get you fucking money to get on homeless way back in the day. There's a lot of people in my stories that I've known for a lot of years, but they looked the other way because that is what you do in the United States to a male. Jurisdiction doesn't matter if it's a homeless person. All this across jurisdictional line stuff that they tell me they can't do, they have and will continue to do for my predators. For my predators, jurisdiction has no bounds. They can say anything that they want with no evidence of it and have me incarcerated and prevented from even being allowed to show evidence or show up in court. My predators, knowing that I tried to tell on them, was abused and had to tell on them and also record them and put them on YouTube and Facebook. And they're able to keep that out despite how public I am making it, because nobody tries to turn that in. They just say, oh, conceptually, well, we should do this, we should do that. No, there's a set of guidelines that you have to go through in the United States. If you don't go through it in the order they want you to, they get to pretend that you didn't try. There's a reason that the very first thing that it has on there is prevention, is a friend or family member. Who did I go to for help before Natalie was killed? My friends, because my family wasn't worth a shit. When my family was abusive growing up, I told my friends. They didn't care. They are all mandated reporters. None of them did their jobs. When I was underage and Brenda and Dennis Dickinson had that same house they live in now, but we had our youth group there, and Dennis and Brenda were selling us pot. Later on, she went to work for Sandhills Crisis Intervention Program. She's not only a mandated reporter, she's trained in mandated reporting. She's also a trauma and rape survivor. Incest as well. Brenda Dickinson knows her stuff. She's also aware of a lot of the situations She didn't follow her job as a mandated reporter. Like many mandated reporters, they just sit and listen and say they're sorry. If it's a woman, they might try to help turn it in. Let me tell you about one of my predators who I love very much. This is something that'll help you to understand why I don't hate Natalie Bollinger for still loving her father. All right, so I don't know, I want to say, I don't know, I was in my 20s. My little sister, she's a couple of years younger than me, right? She was born October 14th of 1982. I was born October 18th of 1980. Just shy of 2 years difference in our age. My little sister, when she was younger, she was a fucking kleptomaniac. She got into a lot of trouble for being a thief. She lost her job for being a thief more than once, and she also liked to tell lies so that she wouldn't get in trouble. And she kept that up until she got pregnant with her daughter, my niece, Destiny. When Destiny was born, Tara decided she was going to be a good Christian woman. And that's one thing I was thankful for Riley, her husband, for, despite the fact that I don't agree with his form of Christianity. I still loved him and how he treated me. And I loved that my sister became a more honest person, but I think motherhood had more to do with that than anything else. I also knew that when my sister lied, it was because she was afraid she was going to get in trouble. She was afraid of something bad happening to her. Reasonably so. So she did something messed up because she didn't want to get in trouble. Now I'm going to tell you, I did something messed up too. I did something you don't do. Now, see, my little sister didn't understand how to train a dog. She didn't understand about consistency, and she just wouldn't stop beating on her fucking dog and changing the rules all the time and beating on her dog. You don't do that. Now, I want you to know my sister has since changed her ways. She is very good with animals, very good with them. Now, of course, her dog in a new environment does get very excited, and understandably so. But Tara doesn't beat her animals anymore. She won't do it. But it did cost me a lot. See, I went over to my little sister's house. She was renting Levant's apartments. And of course, she's got her apartment there. It used to be me and Brandon's apartment. My little sister's got these finch eggs, and we're looking up and researching on her computer these finch eggs. And she's got this air mattress on the floor that she's sleeping on. And she's sitting at her computer desk, and she's been smacking this dog around all day and beating this dog all day. And the dog's name is Chewy. Don't ask me how I remember that, probably because I love dogs. Now, I was excited. My little sister's getting ready to have some finch eggs. I've been having problems with Jason Vogt and Chris Stegeman being all screwed up on drugs. And Chris Stegman knew the rule about Jason Vogt not coming to the house, but he kept inviting Jason Vogt over to the house. I really don't like that guy. You don't pressure Caroline Coffey into having sex with you. No means no, Jason Vogt. Anyway, so my little sister, while we're looking at these finch eggs, she stops and she starts beating her dog again. And I tell her, Tara, if you hit that dog one more again, I'm going to choke slam your ass. So she didn't hit the dog again. She looked me square in the eyes and reached down and grabbed that dog by the throat, got half a yelp out of it. Now, I want you to know that I do forgive my sister for this. All right? I do forgive my sister for this. And I feel terrible because what I did is I slammed her down on that air mattress and I started preaching to her about beating on dogs. Holy shit. Well, then, of course, my sister tells me she thinks I broke her neck. So right there, I stop. I'm not interested in lecturing my little sister. I want her to survive. I want her to be okay. I felt horrible for what I had done. So I went over and I stole my mother's Buick LeSabre with the intention of going and finding a cliff to drive off of and ending my life. I got my sister the phone and I walked it over to her and I gave it to her and I told her to call 911. She still had the use of her hands. Her neck wasn't broken. She was fine. Just really scared. And yeah, I am a very scary person. Don't repeatedly beat on people in front of me. No, But hey, you need to stop. That is traumatic for me to see you do that. It is traumatic for me to see your dog trembling with its tail between its legs, cowering back into the corner every time it sees you, unless you've left it all day and it is hoping for some attention. That's not okay. Now, there's some people in my stories, like Jenny Richmond, who is Pastor Rod Wright's daughter, and Zach Richmond, who's her ex-husband. They're in my stories as well. After joyriding in this vehicle, wanting to end my life, I finally ended up at Zach and Jenny's. I knocked on their door. The sun was just starting to come up. It was colder than a cast iron commode in the shady side of an iceberg. And I let Jenny know I just beat up my sister. Now, I didn't beat her up. I just slammed her down on an air mattress. But that's bad enough. That's not a good, just, or righteous thing to do. What I should have done is stole her dog. That's what I should have done. That would have been the right thing to do at that point, is let her know that there is no way in hell you're getting your dog back. You've been told that is not okay, repeatedly. The dog doesn't understand why you're beating the fuck out of it all the time. The dog doesn't know Wednesday from Thursday. If Thursday the dog's not allowed in the kitchen, and Wednesday the dog is only allowed in half the kitchen, on Monday you want the dog in the kitchen all the time. God, it was fucking nuts. Anyway, when I went over to Zach and Jenny's and I let them know what happened, to the best of my ability to even communicate at that point, driving around for hours, didn't find a place to drive off a cliff. Driving around in Dual County. It's as flat as your prom date. Bad joke? I agree. What happened next was probably the worst thing that an individual could do when they don't want their reputation to be tarnished. My little sister, she ran around, told a bunch of people in town that I tried to rape her. Not okay. Now, many, many, many years later, my sister, crying, just fucked up about it. She honestly and truly felt terrible about it. And Jesus was telling her she's got to do this. Jesus was telling her this. And I listened. And she told me, Sean, I did that because I was angry. You got Rhiannon Ingersoll on my YouTube, same thing. When she was beating on Amy Spencer's kids, she knew she was doing something wrong. How many more times do you think I'd have let Rihanna hit them with the cops doing nothing before I fucking snapped on her? I gotta tell you, it was getting to the point where I was getting between Rihanna and the girls so that Rihanna couldn't get close enough to hit them. I'll take a beating first. And my sister, she apologized. She said, Sean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said those things. I said, Tara, I forgive you. You know, she went and told Brandon Jeffson and Chris Stegeman and Jamie Curtis and pretty much every friend that I had. She went around slandering my name. Just like Amanda Payne did. When she did something fucked up, she ran around Chapel, Nebraska, telling Laura Nelson and everybody else a bunch of slander. Just like Natalie Bollinger, when she fucked up, when she made mistakes, when she made bad assumptions, it was time to lie about someone so she wouldn't get in trouble. But you know what? My little sister apologized. You don't do something like that to somebody. Now, obviously, she didn't tell the police that. She wanted to slander my name and make sure I was punished. She didn't want to see me in prison for something I didn't do. She was just angry. And she was taught that this is an okay thing for women to do. Now, Brandon didn't believe her, and Jamie didn't believe her, and Chris didn't believe her, and why would they? With Amanda, no, Laura Nelson didn't believe her. Laura Nelson knew me. She also went and slandered my name to Amanda Payne and her mom. To Amy Witcher and Andrew Witcher. One of the things that Amanda was saying, she went and told Laura Nelson that she knew I was doing meth because I was hanging out with Andrew. I'm like, you're hanging out with Andrew. The only times I hang out with Andrew is when I'm hanging out with you and Andrew. Or you drop me off at Andrew's house because you're disappearing out of nowhere to go do some emergency something for some reason for somebody somewhere else. This is how it really is for us. Amanda Payne, last argument we had, she said, oh, I never ran around town claiming that shit. Well, maybe we should ask Laura Nelson. She still remembers it, I know. I've spoken with her about it. Meanwhile, it turns out that she was on cocaine and methamphetamines at the time. It also turns out, and verified by Amy, that yes, they absolutely knew that Andrew was on meth, and Amy herself was doing cocaine that he brought her. This is the help I got. These things happened before Natalie was killed by a long time, a very long time. But these are the people who, after Natalie was killed, of course, they're what, going to pretend to be my friends? They're going to pretend to care? They're going to help people get away with doing that? With intentionally trying to destroy a reputation like that? Kind of like Susan Riley couldn't tell the difference between me and my little brother, Michael Allen Albert. The difference is Michael Allen Albert got busted and arrested for stealing cartons of cigarettes out of Susan Riley's van. She was a painter in Chapel, Nebraska. And for over a decade, she told that story down at the bar to every new person in town. But she couldn't tell the difference between me and my little brother. So although he actually did it, he got busted doing it. He was convicted of doing it. It's his name on all the paperwork. She just kept on saying, Sean Schwartz, Sean Schwartz, Sean Schwartz. No, not Sean Schwartz. Your mistake. But she's an alcoholic and a meth user and whatever else you can feed her. Same as Jeff Luchtehus. Now for the cops, you know, they get a free easy out by saying that I need to go to a friend or family member. Well, my friends and family members won't do it. They don't want the responsibility. They're not going to try. They don't care. Now, what are they supposed to do at that point? In order to prevent this, the things that I did are because I already knew these things. I got this piece of paper on 11/19, so the 19th of last month. Meanwhile, the things that it says on here are things that I've been telling you since before Natalie was killed. And you guys wanted to argue. No, this is what works. This is the only thing that works. But you guys want to try everything else. And, you know, kind of like Siggy, I tried explaining to them, if you try to turn this in alone, they're not going to listen. You need to record it and keep notes and... Well, let me read this to you. It says, try to see the person regularly. Frequent visits will help you determine if the person shows signs of abuse or neglect. None of my friends cared. When my behaviors changed to the point that I was literally screaming at the top of my lungs for help on Facebook videos, they still didn't care. It says, get to know the staff who are taking care of the person. None of them did that. None of them cared how I was being treated. They didn't care about the abuse from Waylon Lolotai. Not even after he was on Denver News for assaulting no less than 6 other people on camera in the very same year. After, all of them, after assaulting me. But people cared about them. Nobody cared about me. Just pretended to. It says, express any concerns you may have right away. Right away. Right away. None of them did. They just talked to me about it. And I have to try to express it. I have to turn it in. By myself, without friends or family. It says, keep notes of the conversations. I kept the actual conversations. And with those people as well, to show that they didn't follow these guidelines. I didn't have anyone who was actually helping. Nobody was actually doing the things that actually work. There was plenty of help. Plenty of people were gung-ho about lots of stupid shit that doesn't work and is time-consuming and expensive. Beating a dead horse, but not doing any of these things. It says, take pictures if there are signs of abuse or poor health standards. You guys don't care. None of these people have come out to take a look at what I live in. This right here, no, this is not safe. This is not cleanly. This is not sanitary, and it's not a choice. Now, as we get to see the things that Polly Olson was supposed to do that she didn't do, Scott Decostes gets to use that as an excuse. The fact that my family and friends never tried to do any of these things, claimed that they would, but didn't follow through. He gets to use that as an excuse. He gets to use Megan Missigatis as an excuse. Oh, I had an advocate. See, her name says advocate. She didn't do any of the things that an advocate's supposed to do, but that's not his fault. He told me it was her job. And of course, with me telling him, she's telling me it's not her job. I'm informing him. He can say, oh, well, he told me that he was letting her know. He said he was still in contact with her, so I assumed that that meant that she was actually helping him, and he just didn't want the help. Or then there's the one with William Barr. Oh, he told me he was former law enforcement. I didn't have any reason not to believe him. When he told me that Sean said he was schizophrenic, I thought that he must have been telling me the truth. I wouldn't have run around town telling people that he was schizophrenic if I'd have known that William Barr was a liar. You see how none of these people hold themselves accountable. How I saw this coming a mile away and I tried to explain it and say, hey, you need to cease and desist and you need to actually come forward or you are committing a crime. And all of these people, including Megan Decostes, felt it was acceptable and okay to commit more crimes against me and against the citizens of the United States of America. The amount of crimes that she allowed to have happen as a mandated reporter in the state of Nebraska are phenomenal. Feloniously so. Just like Hayden Thomas, he only showed up once and then he quit. But they get pretend that I had a disabilities coordinator. Or Megan Decostes, who wouldn't do it and wouldn't do it and wouldn't do it and wouldn't do it and wouldn't do it. Didn't finally take it seriously until I was assaulted by Scott Decostes and a Nebraska State Patrol officer named Lassen for trying to turn in Scott Decostes to the Nebraska State Patrol, who told me it's not their job. It is. Look at Michelle Quinn. Look at Polly Olson. Look at Sarah Nelson. Look at Michelle DeCini. All in the news. And guess what? Because Hayden quit, because he, like I said, he worked at multiple facilities. One of them was a female facility. And he quit his job over what he felt was an immoral thing that was done to a woman who wanted an abortion. So although they pretend that I had a disabilities coordinator, I didn't at any point in time. That one day that he showed up, he didn't do anything beyond that. He quit his job. None of the things that a disabilities coordinator is supposed to do were done because he quit his job. And as a result, I had to sit and wait and take abuse. When the doctor wouldn't call me schizophrenic, they gave me this whole runaround about how he had retired and we couldn't have him do this thing that he was supposed to do the first time and didn't. They said, oh, he quit, he's retired, he doesn't do that anymore. So they gave me Dr. Arata, the way that he talked about this Dr. Klaus Hartman, he's talking about this guy like he's Jesus. But Klaus Hartman, what he had to go by was listening to literally the predators that I was trying to turn in and making his judgment based on them, based on Scott Decostes and what he had to say. Not okay. So he said that I was not competent to stand trial. Now, if you knew the situation where that happened, about all the abuse that I had taken there from the moment I got there, because rather than allow me my rights as a human being and an American citizen, they denied me all of them and knew that they didn't have to allow me them because they were lied to and told I was schizophrenic, so nobody cares. Nobody's going to listen to a schizophrenic. Isn't that right? They're already discredited. Meanwhile, was I diagnosed with schizophrenia? No. Scott Decostes can no more diagnose me with schizophrenia than Officer Amanda Jonas of Longmont, Colorado can do so. Telling a hospital that somebody who is trying to turn you in is schizophrenic doesn't make them schizophrenic, it makes you a felon. Whether you have a badge or not is arbitrary. So it's not Scott Decostes' fault that he ran around town slandering my name because William Barr told him. It was William Barr's fault. So people in Chapel, Nebraska, abusing the shit out of me and getting away with it, and others treating me like I'm a complete and total nut job. Why is that? It's because police officers, the sheriff's department in Dual County, Nebraska, there's no police. I can't go to the police to turn in Dual County Sheriff's Department. There's no police department in Dual County. There's only 500 people in the county seat. What the county seat means is basically the capital of the county. Usually the largest city in the county at the time that the county is established. 500 people in that town. Big Springs is the only other town in Dual County, and it's half that size. Then again, William Barr can't be pursued because he lives in Colorado. All of the predators that I explained on YouTube, my intent and purpose to turn them in, got to pretend that I was threatening to kill them because I'm a schizophrenic nut job who's delusional and doesn't know up from down, left from right. By trying to insinuate that I think I'm a magical fairy and a dancing, prancing pony unicorn and some Illuminati BS, blah, blah, blah. Some alien butt probe thing, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's not what's coming out of my face. What's coming out of my face is reality, real people, real emotions, real laws, real neglect, real abuse, and wholesale quantities of it for you to view and not care about. Meanwhile, you guys want to pretend that I started playing victim when Natalie died. No. I was being victimized before Natalie died. And those recordings are still up. The fact that there's 94,000 views on one of the videos from before Natalie died, but evidence that I was speaking up about it beforehand, like I said, 11 views. I sent or forwarded a bunch of those to Siggy yesterday. So if you look at them, it'll be a dozen views on actual evidence, not shit that people just wanted to twist into something it wasn't. How is it that they were able to get 94,000 views on one that got popular? That's what it did. It trended. The other ones no one ever looked at. Nobody looked at. Now, of course, you say, well, there's 11 views. No, that's from people scrolling through. People who knew beforehand what was going on and wanted to give me pretty words. There's a few people who got on there and typed it. 11 views, yeah. But anybody who's actually going to do anything about it, anybody who could actually use the knowledge, and it is knowledge, A lot of people told me, oh, Sean, I believe you. You're the most honest person that I know. I don't have any reason not to believe you. I believe you, Sean. I believe you. I say, but I need you to look at the evidence. I need you to speak up. Oh, I will, Sean, I will. Well, here's the thing. Later on, they say, well, Sean, I don't know anything. You never showed me anything. You told me not to. And yeah, I pushed you to look at it, and you still wouldn't. You said you believed me. And then you looked the other way and let people harm me for years, and you're still looking the other way. I got to piss like a Russian racehorse, so I'm ending this video. Good to be with you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. And remember, it's apparently Polly Olson's fault, not Scott Decostes. It's Hayden Thomas's fault, not Scott Decostes. It is William Barr's fault, not Scott Decostes. It's Nebraska State Patrol's fault, not Scott Decostes. How dare Scott Decosta? It's Jared Hahn's fault, not Decosta. And Jared can't be pursued. Really.